We started off as a company focusing on testing for curtain wall systems, which is the air water tightness tests. And over the years, we have expanded our foray into fire compliance and fire testing. We've been doing fire testing for a decade now, 10 years. We started off with a 3 meter by 3 meter furnace for doing fire resistance testing for doors, partition walls, glass systems. And now we've expanded many-fold. We do a lot of fire testing now for various materials to be used in the construction industry, but focusing primarily on passive fire protection. So fire resistance is one aspect. We also do a lot of testing for fire propagation in cladding systems, curtain wall systems, a lot of material tests for interior finishing materials, carpets, flooring, false ceiling, etc. Here is the setup where we conduct and offer mock-up testing for cladding systems, and typically the cladding design needs to be validated for bringing together different materials that could be compliant to their respective norms. So the norms relating to combustibility, ignitability, flame spread of respective materials could be good. But when they are brought together to form a system, the resultant behavior can be potentially catastrophic, as we have seen some of the big fires around the world. So we have two mock-up tests here in our facility. The NFPA 285, which is an American test method to mock up a cladding system and bring together the whole build-up of a cladding system, right from the base to insulation materials, cladding panels, as well as all the fixing mechanisms, the sealing systems, etc. This structure that you see here is a cladding system that has been tested as per the NFPA 285 test. The Middle East is quite an attractive market for the construction industry, and hence it is very common that the region comes up with innovative projects which require new and innovative materials that needs to come in. And these materials need to comply to the local norms set in by UAE Civil Defense or the civil defense authorities in the region. And hence, a lot of our customers are outside of the MENA region. So companies based out of Sweden, Germany, Japan, Hong Kong. These are some of the people who are manufacturing products and they are selling into the Middle East region. And hence, as part of our testing and certification services, we go out to the factories to ensure that the production control is in place, and they send samples which we have witnessed as manufacturing process, and they are tested here. We have added a lot of tests to take into account some of the new requirements coming in around the world. UK, Europe, Middle East, these are countries which have been evolving their mandatory requirements, and hence we are now targeting some of the international markets. So this is another large-scale fire propagation test from the UK called the BS 8414. There is part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is done where we have a concrete substrate wall. Part 2 is done where the concrete substrate wall is not there but just a steel structure. This is the mandatory test in the United Kingdom. It is also one of the tests, or one of the 4 tests, which the UAE Fire and Life Safety Code points towards to. So in the UAE, subcontractors in the industry have an option. They can either test to the American NFPA 285 test or the BS 8414, or there are 2 other test methods as options. Here in this test method, the subcontractor will come and build a mock-up of their assembly on the test rig. Once the installation is finished, we do our thermocouples and instrumentation, and this test works using a wood crib. So there is a wood crib which is set to fire, and that wood crib creates a fire load and represents a scenario that there is a fire inside a building that is breaking out of a window, and that fire load is what is attacking the cladding system. So very common that we have projects where there are multiple test methods referenced. So you have a British standard, you have an EN or a European standard, you have an NFPA, you have a UL standards. We have worked hard to set up a facility that can test as per all the standards. So we are quite a resource for, let's say, manufacturers even in Europe who are designing products and want them tested for North America. And our lab can offer those tests here in our facility. Fire safety has a very integral part which is called passive fire protection. And passive fire protection in concept does three things. It does compartmentalization. So in case there is a fire breaking out in a building or in a room, it ensures that the fire remains within that compartment. Second, it ensures that the fire does not start. So if there is a fire starting, let's say on a carpet, the fire should not propagate or should not catch fire, etc. And the third aspect of passive fire protection is structural protection, which means that if you have, let's say, beams and columns, they are usually have intumescent coatings and paints on it, so that if they are facing a fire scenario, the structural strength of the building should not come down. So an important part of this is what is commonly known as fire resistance. In order to create a compartment, you will have fire rated walls, fire rated doors, fire rated partition systems, as well as fire rated through penetrations. So if you have a wall system and you break the wall so that you have pipes, HVAC going in, then the hole needs to be sealed back so that the fire resistance rating of the wall is maintained. So all these things need to be validated, and the way to validate is through using this fire resistance test method or a furnace. What this furnace does, we've got 12 burners. It creates an environment of a fully developed fire inside a room. So which means it will have temperatures which can go up to, let's say, 1000 degrees Celsius, and it will also have either a positive or a negative pressure built up inside. So what we do is we have manufacturers of materials like doors or fire rated glazing systems or gypsum or magnesium oxide board based wall systems, shaft walls. They will build a wall, and the wall is then moved to close the face of the furnace. Once it closes and locks off, the fire is started, and it simulates the environment that the wall or a door or any element is able to contain the fire within itself. And that's what is tested using these furnaces. And there are several parameters related to pass or fail. The fire should not leak off, etc., etc. But yeah. So this is our reaction to fire lab. We have augmented. We used to earlier only run the ASTM-E84, which is the American test method of the standard tunnel. But now we have added the complete Euro classes classification related tests. So these are mandated not only in the UAE Fire and Life Safety Code, but these are important classification done for cladding material, flooring material, and any interior finishing material. The test method for classification is well known as the EN 13501-1 or the Euro classes, and it arrives at classification of material done for reaction to fire. It uses a bunch of data from a bunch of equipment. So you have a calorimeter, you have a single ignition test, you have a single burning item test. So typically ignitability, combustibility, flame spread, behavior of material in terms of droplets, etc. All of this behavior is sensed, recorded, and then the Euro classes or the EN 13501-1 arrives at classification of material. So the Fire and Life Safety Code would say any high-rise building can have cladding material which can be A1 or A2, S1, D0, and it would allow for a low-rise, let's say class B, S1, D0, which means the combustibility can be brought down. It can be partially combustible or something, but smoke and droplets, no. So these are how materials are classified, and the code uses these classifications to define materials going here and there.